name is Parkinson. I'm a member of Scarborough United Neighbourhoods, which is S.U.N, and I'll be the moderator of this meeting, this forum. We're pleased to have the opportunity to host this forum with some of our social worker services leaders, to share their respective concerns and suggestions for improvements in both the neighbourhoods and Scarborough Southwest. We will also have a second forum next week, which will include various community centers, group leaders as well. These forums will be recorded and will be posted and shared, as this is a good opportunity for everyone to see and hear what's happening in Scarborough Southwest. Also, these forums do not replace any opportunities for any groups or residents from meeting the councillor. There's lots happening in our city, and our focus is on how Scarborough will be is impacted, and requires support. The status quo isn't working, and communication is critical at this time for residents who are taxpayers and shareholders in this city, which needs to be improved. Suggestions for our councillors and our elected politicians is to keep all of the constituents updated in advance of what's happening. They can request residents' feedback on the issues through e-referendums and surveys, so our politicians can make better informed decisions on our behalf. The format for this meeting and this forum: each group leader that's here today will have approximately 10 to 15 minutes to introduce themselves, share the group's scope, local concerns and suggestions for improvements. Councillor Kandavel will also have the opportunity to respond. Depending on the time, there may be more opportunities for open discussion after all the leaders have presented. At this time, I want to welcome Councillor Kandavel to give us an update. Thank you.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for making time this evening on a rainy January evening. I appreciate that. And these sorts of meetings are not new to me. I held them regularly as a school trustee, and in fact, my first hire, Chief of Staff, is Sandy Kyriakos, who's a resident of Birchcliff. Met her as the chair of the Select Art Council, and that to me was important to hire, as we're taking this journey to hire people who live in Scarborough Southwest. I think when you live in the ward, you have a special connection, commitment to the performance of the office, as well as accountability, because I'm not just their employer, I'm also their councillor. So I wanted to strike that note to start off with how I seek to approach this office, is to have people who are impacted similarly by the decisions I make as a councillor and as part of City Council. So it's been a whirlwind since the election on November 30th. As you know, it was a very intense election, but now as councillor, I'm a voice for all residents and communities, not just those who voted for me. That's something I take seriously, in which I served as I did as a school trustee, so nothing is changing there. The other remark I'll make, it's been a whirlwind. Typically, I was speaking to a deputy city clerk today, in fact, and about after a general election, had I been successful in 2022, all 25 councillors and the mayor have about 4 to 5 weeks off to recuperate and rest from intense elections themselves. Unfortunately, I am not afforded that luxury, and the next day, I think, December 1st was the next day, and I met with the mayor, and we started getting things rolling in. I was sworn in December 7th. Go. And within a week, 6 days later, was my first city council meeting, 3 days, the 13th, 14th, and 15th. Thankfully, my experience at the board, 8 years at chairing important committees, gave me some preparation, confidence to navigate some tough decisions, which I'll speak to in a moment. But I share this not to say, woe me, but it has been a very intense period. July 24th was the date we learned of our former councillor's resignation. And since that day, since that morning, in fact, I've only taken 3 days off: my birthday, Christmas Day, and New Year's Day. So please bear with me. I know there have been a number of requests. We are, in the process of, building the airplane as we are flying it, and part of that is the hiring process, because those are the most important decisions you make as a councillor: who represents you, who works for you, who works for the community. And though it's been a month since I've been sworn in, I do want to take my time with those decisions to make sure we've got the right people working in different capacities. So I share that to give you some context, because we're in a unique place as a new councillor, because we're still dealing with issues. There are development files right now that are proving very challenging, and you know, that require a lot of time and understanding. So, so that gives you a sense. So I'll get into some updates, and as we build our office and get dedicated comms people, I want to have you know, at least every 2 weeks, some update of what's going on to share the major pieces. So one major piece that I started my advocacy on is the Scarborough RT replacement. As you know, successive administrations failed to invest in Scarborough Transit, resulting in a lack of a plan for the longevity and lifespan of the Scarborough RT, which became dysfunctional this summer. And the mayor had campaigned, rightfully so, on replacing the former RT tracks with a dedicated express busway, thereby removing the need for the red bus lanes on Kennedy and Midland, which have had a very big impact on congestion and traffic. So I've made that clear with the mayor. In fact, it was the first thing I spoke to when I met her on December 1st. It's going to become a prominent piece in the discussions in the next 6 weeks as the budget of the city is being discussed. I made that known. It's a priority of mine that, in my personal opinion, you know, the fall they should have started ripping off the tracks. But in my personal opinion, there's no need to consult on design. It's take out the tracks, cement it or tar it, and we get going. Anyway, so that's been a priority within transit, and of course, as I campaigned on increased bus services in our ward, and that's something as I learn and build the relationships at City Hall I'm going to advocate on. I was the only non-board member of the TD Toronto Transit Commission to attend the meeting, and that was a sign and signal to the senior staff and councillors there that though I'm not on the board, I'm there to attend the meetings to understand the file and advocate. The Delta Hotel, that is another piece. In fact, I was working on today with Councillor McMantis, whose ward has the Delta Hotel, and Jamal Myers, whose ward borders Scarborough Agent Court in Scarborough North. And the Delta, to give, you know, I don't have to give much context, it's our only really nice hotel in Scarborough, right? Growing up, I was always fascinated by it. We never went into it as a family, there was no need to. And, you know, it was the one kind of, I don't want to say pride and joy, but a place where I know many of our visitors, friends, family who are coming in would stay at the Delta Hotel. And certainly I know sports leagues, soccer teams, hockey teams, when they host tournaments, they use it there. And for the city now to you know, renew for 5 years, I don't think it is in Scarborough's interest. We've heard it from every corner that this is something that, though, and I'm saying this, you know, balancing that historically Scarborough has always welcomed social housing and supportive housing. I think, in fact, we have per capita some of the most social housing sites, and that's great. That's what makes neighborhoods great. I grew up at Kennedy and Eglinton. I went to Corvette. Grew up right next to the Upper Works social housing, and some of my good friends in elementary school lived in. So that is something we've always accepted and makes Scarborough unique, is the mixed income neighborhoods we have. So, so we have that history. So I think it's important when you look at the geography of our city. I'll give you an example. In North York, just off of York Mills, you've got a Sheraton there. That wasn't asked to be taken in. Right? So certain neighborhoods have greater voice, we know that, and I'm looking to advocate for, you know, returning, or rather being more measured and balanced in how decisions are being made. Housing, without getting into too much detail on what sites, we're seeing a number of, obviously you know the biggest developments, Golden Mile, Scarborough Junction, and now we're seeing a number of along Kingston and along Clonmore. And this is the biggest challenge, I'll be frank in understanding the scope of what's being proposed and where we need to have reflections on the services needed. So I'm getting the ball rolling on that. And each one is site specific, but having communities involved in the process. And this is something Sandy and I noticed yesterday. We met with the chief planner for Scarborough. He acknowledged, well, perhaps begrudgingly, but that community voice is not heard. And now we're looking at, and I thank the mayor for including me. I requested the Planning and Housing Committee, because that's where the biggest decisions that impact our neighborhoods are being made. And she graciously gave me my committee requests, which are Planning and Housing and Toronto Community Housing, TCHC, because those are where we live and how we live impact us the greatest deal. And I appreciate she recognizes the sensitivity I bring to housing and development and planning. So it's in that space that I'm looking to advocate. I've made my impressions known to the chair of the Housing and Planning Committee, Gord Perks, and part of it is the advocacy for greater community voice in how decisions are made. And we know and recognize these are complex and sensitive discussions, and it's not a binary no or yes to housing, but it's how is it affordable, how is it equitable, how is it mindful of the important services that all citizens of Toronto deserve, and how does density look east of Vic Park and west of Vic Park, because we're seeing a very big discrepancy. So I'll leave it at that. And the last piece I'll close in is something that will be in the media tomorrow, which is the budget. The reason I was late or came in at 7 o'clock, I was on the phone outside.
You're actually early.
Was that okay? But I was in the car on a call with the director of the mayor's legislative affairs, and she's responsible for shepherding the budget conversation tomorrow, which will be presented by Councillor Shelley Carroll. And in that, she didn't share with me, but I can give you a heads up on the obvious increase that's being proposed. I am coming into it with a clean slate and an open mind. I'm not going to have a position yes or no before. I did remind the director of her legislative affairs that the mayor did campaign on having an affordable city, right? So yes, she traditionally comes from a space where they look for more services, but we do recognize we have many affordability challenges in our city. Yes, a family may own a house, but it doesn't mean they're well off to accommodate a significant tax increase. So that is on my mind, and I'm looking forward to understanding the budget, the process, to give you guys a very abridged kind of timeline. Tomorrow will be Councillor Carroll's presentation on the staff-led budget. So I'm using that word intentionally because the staff is creating it. This will allow myself, other councillors, communities as well. I'm working with Councillor McKelvey to perhaps do, Councillor McKelvey is Scarborough Park and the Deputy Mayor for Scarborough to do a combined budget forum. Senior staff are stretched, you can't go to every ward. Now it'll give us an opportunity to share our thoughts on it. So the next 4 weeks will be an opportunity for communities and council to hear, express our views, our thoughts. And then on February 1st, the mayor, as per the legislation that came out of the Strong Mayors Act, it becomes her budget, and that will finally be presented in the lead up to February 14th, Valentine's Day. So it might be a love in or a love out on that day, and that's where I'll have to make a decision whether to support it or not, or make amendments. So the next 6 weeks are going to be intense. I know many groups have asked for meetings and individual things, but part of you know, running a tight ship as good people, but also choosing our time wisely. For me to study the budget, that of course involves time and making decisions, and taking my position based on a whole confluence of important matters in our very diverse ward. I said it to the media in my first interview with Emily Fagan of Toronto Star. I don't know if you caught that article, but I said our ward, I truly believe, is a microcosm of the city. We have neighborhoods that are doing very well, and we've got neighborhoods that are have challenges and are underserved, and we have everything in between, right? And also demographically and racially very representative of the city. So it will be a tough decision on this budget question, because that's fundamentally the role of a government is its budget. It's its moral document about what matters and really who matters, because that tells us who gets what. So that's my presentation or update 1 month into the job, or 1 month and 2 days. So I want to continue these dialogues. I'm hoping quarterly to allow us to come together, share ideas, and then of course maybe individually working with our staff. Today I really wanted, many of you, all of you know Tamara Herman, who's my Director of Stakeholder Affairs. But unfortunately, because of the campaign, she's on the board of the Scarborough Philharmonic, and she missed her last board meeting because of the campaign, so she's there to perform her duties as a director of the Scarborough Philharmonic. But she'll be somebody many of you, if not all of you, know tomorrow very well.
Well, that's a good segue, because this is, when you want to get out to all the public, this is going to be recorded, and it's information sharing. So all these our social services here are here to share what's not working, suggestions on how to make it better, and you can take that away, and you're going to be in advance when other groups come to see you too. We can't include everyone, and we do want to include everyone when we're part of S.U.N, to be able to get that voice out to everybody, to all our representatives, whether they're political councillors, MPPs, or MPs, because they all link to each other, they all point at each other. So we got to bring them all into one bag and put them in, and let them have it. So we're going to start off then. That's good, and we'll have some time to come back and close the statements. We've got West Scarborough Community Centre, Josh Hood. You have the floor now.
Thanks very much, Ron. First of all, congratulations on your election, Councillor Kandavel. Again, I'm Joshua Hood. I'm the Executive Director of the West Scarborough Neighbourhood Community Centre. You and I worked together in the past as your role as trustee, and we lean on you for support, and we're able to provide it. Our agency is a multi-service agency, so we provide programs for families and individuals that are starting out for our early on programs. As they graduate from that, we have licensed daycare programs and BGC programs, which are formerly Boys and Girls Club programs. We run extensive youth programs, both in the recreational capacity and leadership capacity. We also run youth justice programs for young offenders who are in conflict with the law, getting them back on the right track. As they age out of those programs, we have extensive employment programs. It's our largest set of services. And then we also provide a large portfolio of seniors programs. So we're very much engaged with the constituents of Scarborough Southwest, and we have locations all over the constituency. So I think it's important to say that our relationship was existing, and we were very pleased with the way you communicated with us and supported us when we needed that help. And we really look for that relationship to continue in your new role. The big thing that I want to bring to the table today, and I know it's very overarching, is affordability in the city. And I think many of the things you discussed have implications with affordability. And it's many families are feeling that pinch, whether it be through childcare, the food security, or just livability and affordability of housing. So what I want to stress is that I'm pleased that you're our voice at City Hall. But I would like to put an emphasis on the fact that agencies like ours, who receive funding from the city to implement services to support the community, we hope that you look to us as your voice back to the constituency, because we have really good relationships. Many of the things you discussed, our agencies, West Scarborough Birchmount, a number of the agencies in our community are already very much invested and are already doing work to try and support community members. I know that there's a lot of work to be done, and sometimes it goes beyond the capacity of a charity, but we're a big part of that process. And you talk about residents being disengaged and their voices not being heard. We are the platform to make sure those voices get heard. We deal with, as I say, a huge group of the people that voted you in, and often when they're having difficulties, they'll come to us and talk to us about it. And our recommendation is here's how you get in touch with the councillor. So we're your first line of support, if you will. So I would suggest in times there's not always the need to reinvent the wheel, but to look to agencies like ours, ensure that we're getting the support to make sure we can provide it back to the constituents of Scarborough Southwest. Yeah.
Thank you, Josh. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Okay. On that note, we'll move over to the Birchmount Bluffs Neighborhood Center, Linda Curley. Before we say anything more, we want to thank Linda for all her help in getting us this room and these lovely signs so they know who we are when I walk in the door. So thank you very much. And that's a little tip.
No problem. So Linda Curley, the Executive Director of Birchmount Bluffs Neighborhood Center. I've been with this organization for 14 years, but the organization itself has been housed within this facility since the day it opened in 1994. So we are a charitable organization, and we offer programs from newborn to older adults, pretty much the lifespan of an individual. Right now, our oldest participant is 101. He was here line dancing today. So we have our Early On Child and Family Center. We have a licensed nursery school, which we're actually working to transition to a full-time child care center. So that'll open up some more child care spaces. We also offer a youth development program for youth 13 to 20 years of age. We also have our Youth Employment Skills Strategy program. That is our largest funded program for Youth Skills Canada. That program is for at-risk and marginalized youth who are have barriers to employment. Youth are 15 to 30 years of age. 30 is still considered youth. 15 to 30 years of age. So we have youth who have dropped out of high school and youth who have post-secondary education as well. We have a 93% success rate with that program. We also have our fitness and wellness programs that we work very collaboratively with the City of Toronto, where we offer both running classes and aqua fitness classes. We have an extremely healthy seniors program. And we also have our Share 365 Poverty Reduction Program, where we work with approximately 200, well, we have 200 families in the program and another 150 families on the wait list, all who are living well below the poverty line. Our average participant has between $7 and $15 a day for food, transportation, and clothing. These are all Southwest Scarborough residents. And when you look at the price of TTC, talking about affordability, that gets them to the doctor and home from the doctor's appointment, but they have no food for the day. That is a completely unfunded program and relies solely on the support of donations from community residents. And I should have started off by saying congratulations again. We are relatively newly acquainted with one another, but I do look forward to the opportunity to have deeper conversations with you about Birchmount Bluffs Neighbourhood Centre, our role within the community. We have a very large membership population, again, from newborn to older adults, and affordability is a significant, food security is a significant issue. Housing, particularly youth housing. Youth housing is a major concern. Youth mental health are major concerns that we are working with within our population. So thank you, and I look forward to ongoing conversations.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Next on the list is Birchmount Community Centre, Patrick Domagala. Patrick?
Hello, and congratulations again. And did you already also look at the table spreads?
Yes, I did.
Very nice.
Yeah.
And these tablecloths, I haven't counted them, we're supposed to.
Yeah, so we work together with Linda quite often. We're sharing the space as best as we can. And sorry, I had to go take crazy son call me. Did you talk about our relationship yet? We're not sure.
We're not sure, so that is an ongoing conversation that we need to have, yes.
Yeah,
What I can't, and I'll just follow up with that, Patrick, sorry to interrupt. So when this building first opened in 1994, and when BBNC came into the building, this was a part of the city of Scarborough. When amalgamation happened, that agreement with the city of Scarborough essentially became null and void. There has been no further agreement with the city. So we are here essentially as squatters. Would you say that, Rick? We're here essentially as squatters, and we need an agreement. We need to have a mutual agreement that is beneficial for both Birchmount Neighbourhood Centre as a charitable organization and the City of Toronto Community Centre. I think that's going to be key in our ongoing development and relationship and partnership.
Linda, Patrick, are you guys aware if there's a copy of that original series? Oh, you do? So, I mean, I'd imagine that's.
I got it all, I have all the studies,
Yeah.
everything,
Yeah, it's 25 years ago, but I think it's a place to start.
Yeah, for sure.
100%.
Great.
It's 30 years now, right?
Yes, it's 30 years this year that we've been in.
I'm sorry, I was referring to amalgamation.
Oh, yes,
yes.
but 30 years
That's
that
what
we've been
you're
in.
talking about.
Yeah.
Well, we're not as quite as heavy. We don't have the food and shelter as much. Recreation is recreation.
Yes.
And that's what we need to do. I think my job is to make sure there's no crime. I don't want tears of joy or tears of sadness.
Joy is good.
Well, not too many. So that's what we want people to have a good time. We're recreation. We have a good time. There's only a couple of things. I mean, we're very grateful. We love our jobs. I think there's just a few little things that I've noticed. One is, you may have already made notice of this, our ice rink. We only have two in Scarborough that are outdoors. Albert Campbell, which is the Civic Center, and our Talon Outdoor Park. And we currently don't have staff. And some of these things boggle my mind during the day. So public are allowed to skate, but if they get hurt, good luck.
So not to interrupt you, Patrick, so that was one of our first things we addressed as an office. We flagged Nisha from Scarborough Junction, highlighted to us, and we, spoke to the necessary, hope the right people, and have opened it up now as of a week ago. We're assuming if it's now staffed to allow access for the change room.
Oh, there's changing more, probably. I'm not sure if we have the staff other than the operating staff that run the mechanics of the building.
Right.
So if somebody gets injured, I don't know if we have that staff.
So what they shared with us is that it's staffed now.
Okay, good.
So if you've seen or heard anything in the last week that runs against that, do let us know.
Okay, all right, that's good to know.
I heard about that today.
Yeah, like I said, we're grateful, we're happy, we have a good relationship, we have our little grievances almost with all agencies. We think there's too much admin going on and not enough attention to frontline issues.
Within Parks and Rec?
Yes, I mean, that's with everything I know. But
Well, it's good to know as we discuss budget.
oh, listen, we don't need any more,
Chiefs.
we call it quality assurance. The quality is the front desk, literally our front desk. And I don't know if I can really say this too much, but I'm going to talk and we'll say it. We do not, and I know this is with everything, I'm well compensated, I'm not complaining about that. But for some reason, our front desk staff are not, all across the city, have a $1 above minimum wage. So if, I guess we're having renegotiation next year with our contract in 79, and I think 416 as well. But we don't, their wage actually went down a few years ago. And they have a huge responsibility. Like, I'm not here right now, except for this moment. So anything goes down, and many things do go down. We've had to use our defibrillator like 3 times in the last 3 years. So these kind of things do happen, especially with the track outside too. There's not staff out there. So if anything happens, they come into us, the pool as well. So our frontline staff, any budget during the negotiations, let's try and boost their wage. It's only like 17 and change, and that's across the city. The only other thing is I'm on the Health and Safety Committee for Scarborough as well, and our issue just seems bizarre is we only have, I've been told, 2 full-time security staff for, I've been told, 5,000 locations. Can you imagine? I don't know how many are in the city, but only 2 full-time security staff. So if something goes down, I know they want us to call 911, and that's the proper protocol, but there's these things in between, right, where it's not quite a 911 call, but where our staff are not feeling comfortable with this individual who may not want to leave for whatever reason it is. It's the building, it's the ice rink. And I don't know the reasons behind it, that we don't have, like we have in Scarborough, contracted cleaners in our building. They're not unionized. In the same way, I would think, can we not have the same contracted for security? At least 1 per district, so if we have an emergency, we can call them, they'll be there. I mean, right now, it's about 45 minutes.
So right now, the 2 security you're referring to, are they security assigned to Parks and Rec, or is it
I
generally
believe it's
city
all the
council?
city of Toronto, which I find, I can hardly believe it, but, yeah. Even if it was the city of Toronto, 2 people throughout, like, I think we have 170 facilities to get to, but I've been told it's 5,000.
Patrick, in the last year, I don't know if you know exactly, but just roughly, have there been unsafe incidents facing staff or?
Many times, actually, yes.
Roughly,
And in Scarborough itself, I don't know if I can name all the locations, but we, yes, one location in particular. Like, what do you do if there's we believe the person in the building has a gun, we don't know for sure. Like, what's the protocol for that? It's a bizarre protocol. We haven't seen the gun, we've heard the gun's in there. So, and then how do you address this? How do you approach the individual? Do you approach the individual? Who do you call? And then the worries about repercussions and stuff like that. So who told? Now how long can we have security here to protect the person who spilled the beans on the person who might have a gun in the building? So those kinds of
approximately per month, would you say? Is it 2,
well,
5
that I'm dealing with in Scarborough itself is about.
No, Birchmount Community Centre.
Well, Birchmount Community Centre, one a month. And those are things that'll come to us and we'll deal with them.
Yeah.
But
You're referring to other. So Patrick, the scope of your role, does it cover predominantly cover?
yes.
Which communities?
Well, all of the, as far as the health and safety, all of Scarborough.
Okay.
I'll be notified if there's an issue. But primarily the south, I think I'm the south rep, but I'm privy to all the things going on. Yeah, Dominic, I'm just gonna feel.
More and more so there.
Yeah.
Good to know.
And that's it. I'm very happy. And we have a good relationship with Linda, and we try to do, we call it replicate our program in that. She seems to be more with the social issues and more with the recreation issues.
Makes sense.
When you brought up the arena, that raises questions I'm hearing a lot. They close it for 3 years because it had a leaky roof. Then they're gonna renovate it, and then they tore it all down. They cemented all the walls up, and then they tore it down. Is that correct? Like, that's what I saw? Or
Pretty
they're not talking
much.
to you? They're not talking.
Pretty much, but Patrick would have more information.
Well, I honestly wasn't sure what was happening until it was gone.
Right,
So they're-
exactly. You know, my understanding with that, with the arena was that, yes, so it was like days before COVID and fencing went up.
Yeah.
And then COVID hit and we all went home. But then, that fencing came down, and then we were told that it was going to be renovated inside and outside, but in terms of the coming down, my understanding was that they found asbestos, which is understandable considering when it was built. So they had to do all the,
So on that note though, was there any public notifications, like the whole neighborhoods here? It just seems like they're just doing it, and again, I'm just hearing the feedback, as I'm listening, is that could maybe be a dual complex because of all the development that's gonna happen here, I mean, population, right, and we need services, and you're going down to one, and those, say, 2 pads could turn into, if there's not enough ice requirements, it could be something else. So this is another thing where I'm hearing from a lot of communities and stuff, they're not being informed of what's happening until after. And councilors are very critical on this and sharing it up front to let us know so we can say, do we want to be engaged or not engaged? But at the end of the day, it's an important thing. So now it's going to be built, and just something as simple as moving it towards Kingston Road so we have parking between both buildings, which would be like a lot of space, would be better. But you know, nobody's had a voice on it. So
You know, I think perhaps we should make a note is a presentation, at least a deck from city staff on the timeline of Scarborough Arena, its rebuild, location, and what services are coming out.
and opportunity maybe to give some feedback anyhow, just in case things always get changed anyhow in plans, but, and that would be good for the community to participate in. So they feel it's part of their area too.
Thanks for flagging that in meeting with Howie Dayton.
Yeah.
You see the head, the general manager of Parks and Recreation, so that'll be something we flag. I think I do want a comprehensive review of what's happening or not happening in our ward.
And I think that's the census for most of the communities is, we're not here to fight about it, we're here to work with it, right? So the building's gonna be there, can we help make it good? Sun Valley's the same thing, they were just gonna put it in there, well, we need some retail, we need some things done to it. So you have the developer work with everyone too, and you know what, there's laws and whatever, but that's the whole key part about it. So it's not gonna be a fight, it's just, let's collaborate together, right? So everyone's got lots of ideas, let's make it worse so it's your community that lives in, so. And you know, good points there too, Patrick.
What I might want to mention too is they are going to lose, I heard 50 parking spaces as a result. Like right now, we've lost about 200 parking spaces.
200, yeah.
Yeah, but even when it's complete, there's going to be 50 less parking spaces.
Is
But
it
they're gonna have more
because the
services,
footprint-
that's okay.
The footprint's gonna be bigger?
Yes, and I'm not sure why. I've heard some talk about the solar panels being in a very odd place. I don't know where they're putting them, but that might be part of the reason we're losing the 50 parking spots. There'll be more community space though, which is nice.
Best place for them is on the roof.
Yeah, that's where they normally go.
Yeah, you would think.
Maybe they're not, maybe they're on the
That's
parking.
why a lot of factories put them, because
Drive
that's out of the way.
I heard they're actually gonna be, like, and I don't know if this is true or not, where the trees are along Kingston Road, they're gonna be taking down the trees. I don't know for sure, I gotta hear from
And that's why we need to find out.
It's bizarre, but I heard it's a bizarre spot where they're putting them.
Have the environmental.
It wouldn't be the first bizarre thing that's
Yeah.
decided to do.
Wow.
Anyhow,
But this is really important for these discussions, right? And it's a good thing, I think, anyhow. So next on the list, we're going back and forth, so we have, South Asian Women's Rights Organization, Sultana, Jahangir? Jahangir. You go ahead.
Thank you for inviting us and thank you for giving us this space in that talk. Congratulations, Parthi. Parthi, you know, long time we are working together in the community. We are very, you know, inside in the apartment building of Attendees. So this is very designated area. I know that Scarborough is full with lots of problems, but very few solutions. The poverty is very high. And we are working with the South Asian community, even though like our organization is supporting, mandate to support South Asian, but we support lots of other communities people, those who are the designated. So we started our organization in 2008 in our apartment building. From very beginning to right now, we still feel the crisis of space. Like we are in a small apartment to run the office, run the computer class. We provide service and sometimes we do the advocacy work. So like every month, approximately we support 140-50 clients for multiple times to put their services, especially for job searching, you know, skill building, resume building and everything. On the top of these things, we are also working to fix the systems. Our 6 themes is like employment and work experience, income and benefit, childcare, housing, and also, recently we started the anti-racism work. And all of this work that we do, the advocacy, sometimes we need a civic engagement with the community. Like last 2 years, before the pandemic, we have some opportunity to run the program, event in the Oak Community Centre. After the pandemic, we find it out that we lost this kind of opportunity. Oak Ridge is totally overcrowded, and there is lots of, even though like 1 year before I sent a request, I don't get the space right now. So like our communities really need a civic place to, work together.
Civic, public space.
Public place that where the non-profit organization run their, program or event. Like, December 16 is our Victory Day. We could not get a space any place. And so we cannot run a program that could bring the community together, because community is in a huge stress. When you do the civic engagement, people are coming together and they learn from each other. So this is very important. Otherwise, you cannot bring the isolation. You cannot bring the community in the mainstream. So like our request is like all this community center, like West Scarborough Neighbourhood Center already left. And my request is like, I need space right now. Like February 21st is an International Language Day. I do not get any space that where I can run a program. Community every single time requested. Usually we get it in the Oak Ridge, so we lost the space. TCSC in 3040 has a small room before, but it is totally, booked by the community's church and also the food bank. So SAWRO lost all this opportunity. And I feel it like our organization is growing a lot, so we need a space. So this is a huge issue for the organization. And on the top of these things, other issue we are working with together.
Sorry to interrupt, just to clarify. The challenge you're having is even booking space on a certain day in a certain time?
No, every time I send a booking request, it gets rejected. No space is not available. There is lots of program running. Sunday there is some, religious groups are doing in the morning time, some praying group, everything. But I find it out that community center space should have to be available for communities people to do the program. But unfortunately, the space is not available. Patrick, when you work in
long time ago, I remember.
and we work together, like every time, as soon as we request the booking, we do send the booking 2 to 3 months before.
Right.
But until 2020, 2021 also I did one program. That's it. After that, I cannot get a space in Oak Community Centre. Every request gets rejected. Like last October, I sent 1 year request. Can you please give me some booking in this. All things got rejected. So I feel it like I really need to build a relationship so then everybody can understand that how important to give a space to the community-based organization. Those who can bring some community together and discuss about the community's concern. And the part of this, all these centers and mainstream services, so community will going to be benefited for this. I know.
Patrick, if you can quickly tell me what is the structure for a community center? Is there like an ED, or from the Parks and Rec perspective, is there one person who's responsible for the operations of the community center?
It's a huge bureaucracy. Howie's on top. If Howie wants something done, he'll get it done. But like we just basically have our own job assignments. I basically look after the programming, the activities in the building. My coworker looks after the admin parts and permits at certain sections.
So with the Oak Ridge, what's the title of the person responsible?
It's John. He's a community recreation.
Johnny
program.
King, right?
Johnny King. Yeah, Johnny King.
Okay. So what's his title?
Community recreation program.
Okay. And he's in charge of permits and access.
Yes.
Okay. Good to know.
He's kind of lucky. He's only got one guy here, so he gets the praise and the love.
So good to know. So now we have a.
Like I really need kind of understanding that show the urgency that the community, this center is really small. I understand, but it's still like until 2020. If SAWRO got space, why not right now? Where is the getting the crowded things in here? So, and the things is in here, it is community center for the community. If the community cannot go inside in the center to do something, so how are we going to get benefited by this center?
No, it's a very good point.
And also, like before, I got this space in the school, but right now the school has, booking a space is very tough with the TDSB. They have large sub-jurisdiction, lots of things we have to fill it up. At the end of the time, they say, no, we do not have any booking. So SAWRO is right now facing a huge crisis for this.
So good thing you told me that, because as you know, when I was trustee, we always sorted out permits. So one of the leadership roles the mayor has given me, she's asked me to chair the city school boards advisory committee. So this is a new committee created to create better facilitation and cooperation, right? The main focus of my work, as I shared in the campaign and in that interview, is daycare spaces, but part of that agenda that you've shared with is community accessibility for TDSB spaces, right? So we had our first event, some of you were there at Robert's Service. We had the Sip and Sing. We worked with Live for Ball, which is a sports recreation league. So we should be able to address those access issues, Sultana, whether it's Oak Ridge Community Center or Samuel Burt or Oak Ridge Public School, because I still have my contacts there.
And I also request one more support that we know there is some local business in here, especially the IPEC, Griffith, these two big organizations those who are running the business.
Sorry, could you repeat those things?
IPEC, Griffith, the Cosmetica. So like these factories should hire the local people. Like I have been trying to reach Griffith and IPEC for a long time and discuss with them that how they can accept the community-based organization reference to hire the local people for this thing. Because, economy is a big issue.
These are factories?
Yeah, this is two factories. One is the meat factory, another is the processing, kind of plastic processing factory. This two is on the top of Pharmacy Road. So there is some other, also the business group. They should hire the local people for the business. And also like, it's not complaint, but I feel it like the chain in Danforth, business people. They're hiring the people below the minimum. And that's also killing the people's life. That precarious work is precarious. We know that how unstable that things. But at least they are not giving the minimum wage. We are not talking the living wage, like minimum wage. Then how the people are going to get the benefited by that? All of the business, they hire the people $10 per hour or a very minimum wage. So that's not going to work. People, we need a local economy. So the people can go work together.
It's a unfortunate reality that no one is, at least significant sections of our society are not talking about, is the implications that have arisen from such a spike in our immigration over the last 2 to 3 years. We went from a traditional 400,000 to now 1 million over the last 2 years. And what that does in a nutshell is when you flood the labor market with people, you depress wages. And that's exactly what we've heard from a number of sources that know international students, and we've gotten to know some. Many are working for $10 to $12 an hour cash, of course.
Yeah.
And what does that do? That prevents others, whether they're international students or other residents, from getting even minimum wage, forget even talking about living, what's the word? Living wage, right? So,
Yeah, and that is the thing. If we can hold this local business, that how important to helping the people to come out of the poverty. That, giving the ways to the people is not in kind. The people are working, they get their money. That we want to make a healthy economy, healthy society.
it is.
Like grinding and squeezing the working class people and bringing the wealth, that is not going to be sustained for nobody. So like that kind of things, if we can build a momentum in the Scarborough Business Association, that will help us to build a strong relationship with them. These are the things I really requested, and also all the things is one thing. I really don't want to take a lot of time, But we have a book, or you already published it, that to show the community's need. We did a survey with more than 300 people and bring all this information, their living experience, and creating the recommendation. So our request is like, please, we want to work together to raise this concern, all the things, the housing, employment, income, childcare, all of the things. Like if any place you find it out, there is a community's voice could be the opportunity, please let me know. Our community, we have leader, 30 women leaders, those who get trained and ready to talk on behalf of the community and on behalf of the organization of this issue. So we can refer them to them. So we need support from all of you to helping us to networking with others and also helping us to get the space that is important for us.
Yes. Thank you, Sultana. And one thing I also want to appreciate you bringing up is the manufacturing or employment lands spaces in our ward, because those are, you know, decent, at least working opportunities. But what we're seeing right now is at the altar of building housing, we're seeing the rezoning of manufacturing and employment lands to housing. And what that happens is that it creates, it takes away opportunity for employment from those who live in Scarborough. And you may have heard of the recent move by Chapters. You know, a great spot. I have so many fond memories of the last 25 years at that location. And what's coming is a condo. It's like, so this is where we need to have very thoughtful discussions of how and when we rezone. And we're not seeing it done fairly and equitably across our city. The Sun Valley is another example locally, right? So these are tough conversations that we shouldn't shy from, is to understand we don't rezone everything. We saw green belts, right? People need access to services and employment. That's what makes healthy, lively, functional communities. That's going to be an important discussion because we're seeing swaths of Scarborough being rezoned from employment to residential, right? It needs to be done very thoughtfully. Anyway, we'll continue on that. It's a deeper discussion, but again, when you look at it from a geographic lens, it's not. There is a balance. Okay.
Okay, no problem. So this is really interesting, and I want to let you know is that for the next meeting that we have next week, I've got Sean Allen, who's the president of Scarborough Business Association. So we've been working with them a lot, and the thing that we're trying to work on is sharing information and getting the word out. So he knows that retail is important, jobs are important, economy is important, and Scarborough's been neglected. So he's in there, and he's not fighting for his own thing. He needs everybody to join together. This is why Sun is here, is to have a bigger voice. We're not all going to agree on everything, but the ones we do agree on, we can make an impact. And a positive contribution as opposed to this NIMBY stuff. We want to work together. Condos that are being delivered, development that, you can go what you want, but you're going to have to put retail in every one. So we have access, so we don't have to take cars. And we can get access to those things. Transit will be in there. That's how I see it, and this is how we need to be if you're going to replace these things. But it's a journey, and it's going to be a lot of discussions to help make that happen. But that's for next week with Sean, and I can engage with him as well. I'm also linked to a lot in LinkedIn with recruiting firms, and they're here in Scarborough, and I can put you through to them and get them to, the right skill set. They'll know and say, yes, we've got opportunities. That's what the door opens.
Please send my contact information. We have some people are calling regular basis to the employer, request them that to accept our reference. So every single day, a lot of women sit down together and use it as a resource center to our office to call the employer. So if you have any list of employer in a local place and you have any personal relationship, please let us know. We can connect the communities, women, those who are looking for job with them. The job is the main purpose right now. Because every family, like 1-bedroom apartment is 2,500 without the hydro. So it is tough for the people to survive right now without the 2-person income. So especially those women come to us, they are looking for job, any kind of job that they immediately qualify for.
In a lot of cases, they're working for their second job.
Yes.
And even on weekends too, right? So we know that, that's what we found out from this food banks too, is that people are going, I already have a job, just not making enough money to
No.
survive. So that's the key things that we have to do there, so yeah, we're all on the same page with that. Okay, great, thanks, Sultana.
And just last question, sorry to disturb you, just help me to get a good relationship with Oak Ridge Community Centre to understand that.
That's
For us to get
that's
this
the note I
piece.
made.
Thank you.
With the Oak Ridge Community Center. I know John, so.
Well, John, we had more groups as well that were gonna come, some declined, but John was one of the first ones who gave me a call personally and said, I just came back from vacation, our holidays, and I really want to, but all our programs are running out, and I'm sure with Josh and Patrick and Linda, the same thing, right? You got a lot of things going on, so not the greatest timing. So you're investing in Scarborough and your careers here and your jobs. So that's the key thing there. So
If I can add something, you may already be aware of it, but you know about Sixth Store, and it's like a derelict city building, it's Sixth Store, it's across from Norton Sixth Store, isn't it?
Yes, I knew
Yeah,
it was, yeah.
It's a bizarre derelict building, and nobody knows about it but me, who still has the keys for it. I store all my junk there, but it's just a derelict building. And are you familiar with it? It's down the street from the hub.
I've heard of
Which
it.
one?
It's
Sixth
called
Store.
Sixth. Well, it used to be a bocce, a seniors bocce.
Italian.
Yeah, so it's completely been derelict for about 10 years.
Oh my
That's
God.
why I store all my stuff there.
So if with that kind of spaces available, we can like innovate these things to work for the communities because we SAWRO really need a space.
Yes, it's a great empty space.
and
You
there's
give us
also,
some address, we can go and see and then we can take the key from you and we
I got keys, go out.
this is out of the box kind of thinking, but with developers buying things and then boarding them up, you can use that office and maybe you can get it based on, and they'll let you use it just for the hydro or heat or whatever. So those are things that might open some doors temporarily, but at least they're going to build it for a year or two, but they leave it empty there, right? So that's an opportunity too. How you get those connections is another
Yes.
we've got to find ways for that. So don't leave it empty. And you've seen this all throughout Toronto, boarded up places on major streets throughout Toronto, and people are going, what's happening here? They're going to build something. When? It's a long, long time. And meanwhile, people are saying, well, there's nothing here, I'm leaving. And that turns the neighborhood around too. So this is an opportunity too to help you with your problem. Your challenge is finding space. So get some space, and it can be on Kingston Road or wherever, that you can use for a year or two. And then worry about the next day, let's do today.
Our main concern is like when you do any event, people look for a walking distance something. Because nobody has extra TTC to buy and go. So like that is the things like when the Oak Ridge this place is very accessible for the community.
Yeah. And it
You
should
know
be
the Sixth
accessible.
Torah has a big building just empty and left like this, so it's still not get renovation. Sixth Torah Avenue.
Yeah.
That is space also like you talk about like we had a plan, we talked with the city, but I think we should sit down with you again.
Yeah, let's
Find
make Oak Ridge accessible.
Yeah. Okay.
They're not gonna do that thing when one walks in and says, I wanna get a boarded up building to use for a year. They can have a reason why, right, and show that you need it.
Yeah.
So great discussions. Last but not least, we have, I know I have spoken like a million times. Guled from the Scarborough Civic Action Network, SCAN. It's, introduce yourself and go for it.
Perfect. My name is Guled. Scarborough Civic Action Network Program Coordinator. Scarborough Civic Action Network started about 20 years ago from just conversations between different neighborhoods about talking about how people can kind of get together to kind of have a little bit more of a discussion between them, have more of a voice. And I think since 2006, it's actually a non-profit funded organization. We represent all of Scarborough, but I am a resident of Scarborough Southwest, so I'm a little bit biased here. So we're an organization that tries to look at what issues, systematic issues are impacting Scarborough and the inequalities that impact Scarborough, and how we can get residents to kind of give a voice and be able to engage civically in order to try to address it. We are funded through the United Way currently, and our three biggest and our three priorities are housing, community safety, and transit. We have a lot, we have a board of trustee, that, a lot of Scarborough organizations are part of, West Scarborough is one of them. We also do actively play in every year a big role and try to advocate for Scarborough when it comes to the city budget process, which we're looking forward to seeing tomorrow, both in terms of the revenue side but also the services side. I know the city has a huge systematic problem with their budget, and Olivia seems like she's done a lot to try to address it already, but there's still a long way to go. So it's going to be interesting to see how the gap is met, both when it comes to revenue, but also if there's any service cuts that are going to be happening. Because like we as Scarborough, you probably know that we like for our size and for our population, we have a deficit of services compared to the rest of parts of the city, especially downtown. Like you said, like you always say, the divide between Victoria Park, East and West, when it comes to the services that the city offers is very evident. Scarborough is lacking. So we always want to try to advocate for more services, and I know it might be a difficult budget cycle, but we're still going to try our best we can. And any cuts at the table that we feel like might don't serve the best interest of Scarborough, we're definitely going to be advocating against them. On that note, I know that the public budgets meetings happening, I think, in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
There's one happening in Scarborough Civic Centre.
It's 22nd.
Yes, but at the same time it's happening downtown, so is the budget committee gonna be separated into two?
Yes, so the budget committee, I think, is breaking up into 4 teams, and then 3 members will be present. I'll be present, of course, I'm not on the budget committee, but though I requested it, they already had started their work, etc., so the mayor couldn't get me onto it, but there will be 3, and hopefully other Scarborough councillors to hear it, and that, I think, is a good place that, Guled, if you can share the basics of how to register.
Yeah.
I think other groups should be there to advocate using data. The data is very clear who gets what and the extent that we're underserviced here.
Exactly, yeah, so we're definitely gonna be doing that, also trying to help build capacity for residents to be able to come and impute and talk about themselves, what things they want to see as well. So there's going to be a very interesting budget cycle with the new mayor, so we're going to see how it goes, and especially with that fact that after all this, the mayor presents their budget. But I haven't seen this any public consultation with the mayor's budgets.
So, as I'm learning the legislative details of the Strong Mayors Act, there is no vote on the budget. So thus so whatever you want to put into the budget is these next 6 weeks, and then August 14th, it's the mayor's budget is the mayor's budget, and
so it's the mayor's.
I need to find out, do we actually even vote on it, because it's not council's budget, it's the mayor's
Did
budget.
she say she wasn't going to be using?
I don't think she has a choice.
Yeah,
I think that the Strong Mayor powers, we were still backing the legislation.
They refused to use it. So they like,
No.
They use it
No,
once,
she's
but they don't want to
refusing,
use it.
she's not using, when it comes to
They-
votes on
they-
initiatives,
they-
but she doesn't have a choice on the budget. So so I think it's an interesting question. I see both pros and cons. At least this way, the city knows who is responsible for the budget, because I think in previous years, the argument could be, well, this is the council's budget, and councillors, if they got the 13 votes, could make additions or subtractions. Whereas this one is her budget, so.
So even on the 14th, councillors can't make amendments.
I think we can make amendments, but that would require, if you're putting in 10 million more for daycares, if I were to do that, then I have to specify where the 10 million is coming from. So we're going to be briefed tomorrow on the process, but ultimately it's her budget.
SAWRO attended some budget consultations program and event. One was done in the Scarborough Civic Centre, where mayor was also put their whole budget they presented and asked the committees people to do the consultation. So my experience is this kind of looks like funny that, okay, they want to cut something because the city has a big deficit right now. So they told us like, okay, we want to cut something, so, your hand, your leg, what is some part we have to cut it, so tell us which part we want to cut. Because these are the things in the budget. So if you, we said that all part is important. We cannot, afford that you cut childcare fund. You cannot afford that you cut the housing fund. We said that, okay, why we need that much money for the police fund? Because we see that huge amount of money is going for police funding. So like, these are the things, we find it out that, I asked it the things like, how, like suddenly you said that many $1 billion deficit. So like, you are a new mayor, you should find it out that how this deficit is happening in here. Like, it's not happening in a day,
So-
it is coming for a long time. The last mayor that left the deficit. So like, our concern is like, if city has some deficit, we have to find it out how we can get the money from province and, federal. Not like putting in your hand in my pocket because I don't have any money. Like, you are increasing the tax, now why not you go to the province and go to the federal, say that we need more money because you are taking money from us, or we should stop paying the province and federal that the tax money that they cannot be collected.
So one thing, something that's coming up, you may have heard, you definitely see our line 2 east-west subway is not, great compared to the north-south, right? So the east-west line 2 subway trains are nearing the end of life. So it's about $1.2 billion to replace those. The city has found the third for it. The province, and kudos to the premier, has coughed up their 1/3. The federal government hasn't. Politically, I'm partnering up with TDC riders to start a campaign on pushing our federal MP and Scarborough and Liberal MPs who are in power, obviously, to cough that their 1/3. So tomorrow you're going to see some saber rattling with the federal government, saying, listen, if you don't come up with your 300 odd million, there's going to be a dedicated additional tax or proposed property tax increase that's dedicated for their portion. So we're hoping that will, scare them into giving their portion. For tomorrow, Sultana, to come to your concern about cuts, what I was shared just before I came to the meeting is that it's not going to be a cut-based proposal tomorrow, and maybe some even marginal service increases, but that is coupled with a substantive tax increase. So I don't know the number, but it will be shared tomorrow, but they said substantive, so my guess is between 8 to 12%.
That would suggest it will be above the rate of
Yes.
inflation, which
Yes.
is worth.
Oh, yes, so definitely, significant
We
money.
need to charge against it.
So it'll be 8 to 12, so a lot to discuss the next 6 weeks and what that means.
There goes inflation.
Yeah, and like this is also something a lot of big cities in Canada actually struggle with. I think Vancouver did a 9% increase. Even like smaller cities in Ontario see substantial tax increases, unfortunately this year for property taxes. But yeah, the other priorities, housing. One thing that's happening in March is rooming housing is going to be legalized in Scarborough. So we're working with the city to try to educate both tenants and renters about the changes and trying to make things as safe as possible. And also kind of looking at maybe some kind of rule changes that might need to necessitate rooming housing. Like for instance, I think 24-hour parking in streets in a lot of neighborhoods are not allowed in Scarborough. But if you have rooming housing, you have like 6 people living in a house, one driveway is not going to cut it, especially in Scarborough where you kind of have to drive. So just kind of looking at like what kind of auxiliary changes policy-wise need to be happening around that to kind of try to make things go as smoothly as possible. Transit, like you said, bus lane is something, replacing RT with buses is something definitely that is happening, but needs to happen faster. But the LRT, Ingleton East LRT, was something that was promised, I think like 12, 14 years ago. I think the city moved forward towards the design phase of that, but like, there's still no funding attached to it. Yes, people still look forward to getting some new subways, but like that's nice. was something that's promised to Scarborough, like for the Pan Am Games back in 2015.
Yes.
Students at University of Toronto are paying a tuition fee increase levy because we were promised by David Miller came to our campus, vote for this and we built out our seats to your campus, and yeah, it hasn't happened. So that's something we definitely want to see expedited a little bit faster. And then yeah, when it comes to community safety, that's a whole bag of issues, and especially like now the city's moving to this community safety police thing, and now as we're moving from a pilot project to actual implementation citywide. We're interested to see how like that actually plays out on the ground.
Well, along the lines of the community safety piece, I was having a conversation with a funder just before we broke for the holidays, and talking about, so BBNC has been involved in conversations around particularly youth gun violence and the development of Scarborough-wide committee to address, to look at ways that we can address gun violence, particularly youth gun violence. And the particular funder was talking about the fact that she had been speaking to another colleague who was talking about BBNC and our involvement and whatnot, and praising us, and then saying, and there is going to be some funding coming up with respect to this, but it's going to be going to, you know, North York. That's right.
From the city?
It was not from the city.
Oh, from the funding, sorry.
It was from the funder, but the funder was talking about it. But it was like, Scarborough is left, like, Scarborough has a massive
The
issue.
last two youth homicides, sadly on school property, were 2022, February and October.
Well, we as an organization were directly impacted by a youth being, one of our staff lost her son to gun violence in front of his home. And so we have a direct interest in ensuring that this is addressed. But there has to be the funds. It can't be done off the side of people's desks anymore. It has to be, there has to be an investment in making sure that the work is being done. And it can be done at the community level. And it needs to be done at the community level. Youth are feeling disenfranchised, they're feeling unheard, they're feeling unseen, they're feeling all of these things that significantly impacted by the isolation that the pandemic,
Lack of employment.
lack of employment, all of those things. But it can't be done just off the side, you know.
And this is thank you, Linda, for raising this, because you know, in my opinion, I spoke about this in a couple of forums during the election, is that those who label themselves progressive, to me the word doesn't mean anything now, don't raise any hue or cry for the social challenges in Scarborough, right? And this is something we have to address with the mayor, who comes from progressive strand of politics, who recognizes there are sections that are underserved, but if money is going to, you know, different communities that's not addressing it, how are you progressive when you're not serving those who are considered, you know, part of the most underserved, right? And that's something we've got to look at. It comes down to, and I share your sentiments on, you know, accessibility youth spaces, where they can feel enjoyed, whether it's community center programming, whether it's employment opportunities. It is complex, but it needs investments, right? And you see that.
I also just want to address in here that look, cities community-based funding totally not exist anymore. Like especially access security, human rights, AEHR grant, and some community funding, community festival grant are not, no more even existent in the society. But those fund is giving the community-based organization a small kind of space, sustainability to run the program, to support the community. But those fund, after 2015, 16, all is gone. I don't know why city is stopping this kind of fund. And main concern is like city should have to be feel that investing social infrastructures and social sector is a really important, because that investment is build the society rather than like taking the money for other sector, but it is important to put the money in the social service sector.
So I think one of the takeaways from today is that my office will be in touch with how your members within your groups can come out on the 22nd to depute and share these stories of the marginalization, of underservice, and what needs to be priority in a city that cares, right? I think as well, I think when we connect it to I've always been very positive about the mayor's intentions in my media interviews, and I know she comes from that place of well-intentioned, right? We need to, but there are other forces operating within the city, whether it's councillors from other wards, etc., then that we need to show this is a priority, because at the end of the day, it was Scarborough that decided the election in June, right? Etobicoke, North York went predictably to the, and North York predictably went. It was Scarborough that was the bellwether that selected the mayor. So this is in the direct political interest as well for those who want to see. I think we need to make a concerted, organized effort on the 22nd to bring this out with specific asks. We want to see this increase. We want to see that increase, right? And also be prepared, because come February 14th, and the budget is not where I feel comfortable with. We need to make motions, and those motions will require, if I'm increasing $5 million for anti-gang or youth violence prevention work, I've got to take $5 million from somewhere else. And we've got to think about where that comes from, right? I want to do it kind of on the fly, but we've got to give that this is the responsibility of everyone, right, to implement that.
The constant discussion seems to be put security on the trains, things like that, and forces and armed guards sort of thing, as opposed to what you're talking about is the mental illness, the not going to the root causes of why is this happening. We see it happens there at the subway station. We see that kids on buses and stuff, but having militarized type thing isn't doing it all either. So it's a reactive type thing. So maybe that's the discussion where the money is. It's being thrown there, and the TTC is putting lots of money into it, but go on the subway and see if you see this. That's the key thing. So do you feel safe? No, and you can't, because you don't know when someone's going to come to you and go, there, you're the guy now. You're the one I'm going to hit. And it's that kind of fear factor, right? So the root cause is why is it happening?
Once again, like when we talk about the crime and gun violence. The policing is not the solution. The solution is build more, program for this youth group. Expand the youth recreation center. Like Oak Ridge community centers, and this area doesn't have any youth recreation center. All the young children, they're mingling together in beside the high-rise building. So crime is happening over there. We need them to be involved with the constructive work, not kind of destructive work, because we could not give the constructive work, so they get involved with the destructive work. So that is the things we needed. Investing in this social sector, helping this youth to get a recreation place, helping this youth to get some kind of vocational training, that will help them to come out from violence.
I completely agree. I'm always reminded of October 2022, just a week after the election. It was a Halloween day, scary day. A grade 9 student, David Mary Thompson, Friday, I'm not sure it was Friday, but cold-blooded, 3:15, came into the school, knew his target, shot him in the back twice. Dead. Right? That is a public policy failure for a 14-year-old to blindly and in a cold-blooded fashion make that decision. It's not a flash in the pan. That means for at least 3, and former grade 6 teacher, you see the change. You stay in touch with your students, you see them in grade 7s, you see the changes. That's an evolution. To go from a 6th grade, 11-year-old, they're typically innocent, they are not thinking, to get to that decision grade 9, that's a failure on many levels, including the city's role in providing meaningful, engaging opportunities outside of school. In the evenings, in the weekends, to engage in productive, constructive, recreational-based activity. And it's something that I think is something to reflect on. So,
But it also has to go, and not to be critical of recreation, okay? Has to go beyond recreation.
yes.
Yeah, I've got an answer for that. I've got a solution. Believe it or not, for all youth crime and violence. And it's interesting because you're beginning to see this in American universities. They've started paying American university sports players,
Yes.
right? So, I mean, and I always thought that Rob Ford, we were the same age and everything, had a kinship with Rob. And I thought he had a good idea. It just seemed out of the box, but he was always giving his time to these youth football teams. And I think what we're missing in Scarborough, and actually throughout all major cities, is the competition in youth sports. Like we have no more citywide competitions of any kind, dance, floor hockey. We used to have all these big competitions. And if we actually have, even in these high priority neighborhoods, and we can work with the police on this, leagues, like so this basketball league in these high priority neighborhoods, and pay the players. You're going to get them because they're in these negative gangs or whatever they might be, because they're getting some money, they're getting a kinship. If you have a basketball team, football team, whatever it is, and you're getting a little bit of an income from that, people would actually come out and see it too, right? And if you can in some way get the police involved, you've got the security involved too. So it's a positive thing. They're making money. They're having group affiliation. And I see it as imagine whatever, Oak Ridge versus Melbourne in basketball, right?
Sport is important, hugely valuable, etc.
Yeah.
It is not the only answer
No, right.
because not every youth
Right.
is
Music, arts.
about
Yeah,
sport.
true.
So it has to be, but there has to be music, there has to be art, there has to,
Right.
but there also has to be, and I agree 100% when you're talking about that kinship. There has to be a place where where particularly children and youth, is I think you have to start them at the, early ages where they feel safe, where they feel that they belong,
Yeah.
where they feel that this is my home away from home kind of thing, or my home instead of home, because home ain't so great.
Right.
You hit it on the nail, and you're going back to the Jahangir Thompson incident. As we were privy to some of the details. Essentially, that young boy was, what's the word? There were external older influences that push that course of action. And why does that happen? It's because of the belonging that group provided that boy, right? That belonging, that sense of kinship, right? And that's what's missing, right? And many factors. I appreciate you pointing out there's many factors, including employment, right?
We have to provide opportunities for youth to take positive risk as opposed to negative.
But here's where I want to put context. But what I like about football, even though I'm not in football at all, is that males, we have this natural aggression where we want to test our mettle. We want to push our limits. And football is a great way to do that in a controlled environment, right? So now you're a part of a group, you're getting paid, and you get your aggression out. And you're just too exhausted to do negative things after. It will probably never happen. But I just saw all these things, okay, positive. And
Lots of things to talk about. Guled, you're still on?
Yeah, so
Right.
I think I kind of touched everything I kind of said, but like also like all these problems we're kind of talking about, these systemic issues, like we already kind of know what the solution is. The problem is funding, and it's going to take like all levels of government to come together because unfortunately cities' hands are kind of tied when it comes to properly funding, which there's enormous amount of funding that's going to require to deal with these real like inequalities and all these real big issues. And the problem is though, is that the results of these won't come like right away. It come like the next generation of youth. But the problem is politicians can't wait that long, unfortunately. They,
Good, you're right, it is funding. I think what I'd add to that, funding is key, critical. It's also the strategic investment into what program, right? Because you can toss $1 million to a community center, but if they're doing, if they're just doing, say, arts and crafts with it for 6-year-olds, so it has to be targeted. And I think that's where the human capital of who lives in the ward gets to inform, what that money goes towards, right? Because sometimes you see, not the best use of public taxpayer dollars. Critical funding is critical.
And going back to funding and stuff, when we're looking at just one example of the Delta, you're talking $36 million a year to fund something that could be done more economical, more frugal. Take 20 of that million, and then there you go. You've got money that's going out to somewhere else to fund. So these are the capital kind of things, and they're tough decisions. But you know what? We can't sit on something forever. It's procrastination. COVID happened. We had to put people in the shelters there. That's fine. But now COVID's over. Where are the other shelters? Where are things that are better for them too? Right? We don't want them in tents and camps. So they're taking the easy way out of our pockets. So they need to be more business-like.
I agree with totally wrong. That they feel like easy way to put their hand in our pocket because they feel like this is the way we can get the money. But cities should look at that very wisely. Like I always say that, if they're spending very smartly, and they see a whole picture together, that what could be the future of the city. Investing on the children, investing on the school, investing on the recreation, investing on the community is the future. So like if they are not working on the future and they're just working in other sector, that our future is totally get destroyed. Because if we are not investing in the future, we are not building a country, or we're not building a city. Because every time the money the city get from collected as a tax, so they should feel that how wisely they can, spend it.
Good?
and I think that's everything for me.
No? You're good?
Yeah,
Okay.
thanks.
Okay, then we've still got a bit of time left. If there's any other points someone else wants to talk about on the floor, anything else you want to bring up, it's fine. Okay, Phil?
Can I talk?
Yeah, you can talk.
You mentioned earlier.
Go around, show your face and there you go.
Okay, hold on.
Good job, Karen, for all that.
Yeah, I know.
Just, you mentioned earlier about the lack of public consultation. Like around the mayor last election and this election, by-election, lack of voices in the media, right? And that's what the problem is. There's a gap between council and the voice of the public, right? I'll give you an example. I got a deputation on Thursday. I just found my first deputation. They'd only give you the list of when you're going to do your time an hour before the meeting starts. So for me, on Thursday, I have to go down at 6 o'clock in the morning, downtown.
I think you have the option to do virtual.
Yeah, you can, yeah, but I put it down in person. So, like I said, a public consultation, there's no, like these things happening, there's no consultation, like you weren't consulted. Scarborough, not consulted, they're going to do the Delta. Where's the public consultation for Delta? There's nothing there, right? So that's the thing they got to work on. Like you're there, work on that preparation, get people going. Give it advance notice. Like for me, I'm retired. Like I'm retired, right? So I can go down and spend all day there. But people that are working, like you are working, you're taking an hour off, and it could be like 3 hours there. You're taking 3 hours out, and I think that kind of like gets me mad about that. Like I know people personally down there that are working. Like one lady took 8 hours and she had to come back another time.
I agree. So I think one of the things we'll be doing within our office is pushing out what's on the agenda, right? That way, not everyone has to go do the digging themselves. Our staff will be doing that, and we'll push that out. Say, hey, these are what we think are the big items that are coming forward. We're not going to give the whole agenda because then we're just flooding you with information. We'll give you what are the big we think are important and easy to register links. If you want to delegate, if you want to send an email to the councillors on the committee, then we're going to try to make it more relevant and easy to access.
Okay.
Okay. Anyone else?
Oh, so yeah.
There's a limit too.
Okay. Did you want to go?
Oh, quick, I don't know the whole title or the economics or the accounting behind it, but, and whatever, I don't know if I'll get in trouble, but we're in a pretty strange budget where if we don't spend it, we won't get it back next year. And I think that's really almost evil. Like, if you don't spend it, let's get it, like, don't spend it, then we'll have more money next
Oh,
year.
internally, right?
Yeah.
So
What
that's,
is that? Is that?
That's
I'm a mundane, and that's like an internal kind of control mechanism. I'm meeting with the city manager, the top bureaucrat on Thursday. Yeah. So, you know, I don't know if it's the first thing I'll bring up, we're going to talk about some of the big items, but that is something, you know, that, you know, incentivizes bad spending,
Yeah.
you know, because if you just
It's
Wait.
like the old Soviet Union, at the end of the year, there would be trucks driving around the city for the sole purpose of using up their gas.
Yes.
Because they didn't use it up, they didn't use it next year, which was absolutely nuts.
My background's in procurement, and I went from a corporation like IBM into the public sector, and it was called March Madness, and I didn't know what the heck that meant. What's that? My God, they just dropped stuff on my desk. Buy this, oh my God, approve, I gotta use my budget up, and I need it all by March 31st.
Yeah.
Delivered with a receipt and all that. I go, what the hell? You're buying 500 laptops. There's only 200 people here. Whatever. Oh, but you know we're gonna use them. That's when I got to say public sector is a waste. There's lots of waste there, and I personally, because I'm a taxpayer too. You know, I put the money back in the coffers and use it when you need it and build some loyalty and trust, right? But that's the game they play, and that's not the way it should be, really. You probably find $100 million out there somewhere. So.
Curiosity, has council voted on the modifications, the revisions, excuse me, to the noise bylaw?
I believe.
That's on
It
Thursday.
is,
That's on-
it's going to committee this week.
Thursday.
Is Thursday.
Yeah. I'm part of that.
It's a review of the
Yeah.
bylaw
Yeah.
that was implemented in
So are they
2019.
initiating the review, or are they bringing the revisions? You know?
They're presenting the report of the review. I
Yeah.
believe.
Because I just received, because I'm a member of it, I belong to Cora. Have you ever heard of that? The
Sounds-
Confederation of Toronto Ratepayers and Residents Association.
Oh,
So it's like all the RAs kind of belong to it. I'm the Scarborough. Anyway, they did a review of the recommendations coming from staff. They did apparently take some of the recommendations that came forward, but they still do have some areas of concern, because some of the measurement restrictions seem a little weird. I don't know, would you be, you would probably receive the letter, but I can provide it to you.
If you don't mind, and Sandy will,
So we're gonna get that.
we'll send it to Councillor_Kandavel, and then
We'll
Sandy will be reviewing that.
And you will also be receiving a letter,
Yes.
no doubt, with my name, on the Delta Inn,
Yes.
outlining a
Yeah,
lot
we
of
got it.
the concerns that the neighbors have of what's going on up there.
Yeah.
Some of which you touched on already, like it's the only hotel
Yeah.
in all of Scarborough, and it can't be used now, that's
It
ridiculous.
is, I agree.
How do we attract people here, there's nowhere for them to really stay?
And so this is something, I would advise your networks in S.U.N and SCRO to delegate on Thursday. It's not too late to register. I would keep the delegations without emotion, factual based, and recognizing that we have always supported supportive housing and social assistance and social housing in Scarborough. We've always done that. And we need to recognize the complexity and that this is a place that is our only hotel, that, many communities in Scarborough have used. I know in my cultural community a decade ago, we had a big conference. It was the Delta. We put up the Delta.
That's where we stayed, we had the ice storm, and the power was out for like over a week.
Yeah.
well, we ended up moving into the Delta because it was the only place to stay.
So, another thing I would advocate is right now I had positive Councillor Nick Mantis is the councillor, had a positive conversation with Councillor Jamal Myers, and he feels exactly how I feel. I think Councillor McKelvey, who tends, who's understands our concerns as well, definitely, and we're all going to speak. Those of you who have connections with the residents who live in Councillor Ainsley and Councillor Thompson, I urge them to
The
communicate.
other thing was there was a certain lack of transparency before they just came out and announced that they were renewing it.
Yeah.
Which kind of
I can't-
I can't very happy because
And
what
that's
are you
the-
doing? What
that's
is
the
kind of the
concern.
game are you playing now?
Yeah, and these are the things that I'm building my relationships with all the Scarborough, well, the ones that are, that I'm engaging with in Scarborough. I spoke to those councillors who I'm building positive relationships with, but, I can tell you from experience as a trustee, in my first term, because we had 5 Scarborough trustees at that time, we all did our own thing. We weren't in our second term, when we actually went to 6 trustees. We were very united and concerted, and as a result, I was the budget chief, I was in search of the the chair of the search committee for the director, and we got somebody who grew up in Scarborough, who was a superintendent in Scarborough, now the director, understands and making investments in Scarborough. So I share that because what I'd ideally like to be, at least a year from now, is 4 of the 6 councillors, ideally 6 out of 6, are on the same page, moving together. So it's going to take some time. I think we need engagement from all residents and tenants, ratepayers to advocate, because we've also seen the impact on that in Scarborough General Hospital. Again, underfunded, underserved, and their number of cases have gone, what's the word, significantly because of the social impacts coming out of the Delta.
Well, there's too many, one of the things that's come out of taking part in E.H.O.N. and all the other things is that they act in silos. Because, to be honest with you, city planning is an oxymoron. It ranks up there with military intelligence. Because they don't talk to each other. You get a report that is only based on this committee that was gathering, with no interaction with any of the other things like transit or anything else. It's just solely focused on whatever item it is that's on the table. Nothing else is taken into consideration when you get to vote on it, which seems to me to be quite ridiculous. Because one of the things that came out when Greg Winter was still the planner, that they were talking about the impacts of the multiplexes and whatnot. And one of the questions that came up from Councillor Ainsley, well, we don't have enough parking in the Guled. And Ainsley was reminded that 2 years ago they voted on not having any minimum parking. Because minimum parking was kind of brought up in a vacuum of anything else.
I know.
So now you've got, well, there's no minimum parking.
See, this is an example of there needs to be more nuance, right? There needs to be more nuance in city
It needs to be more
planning.
holistic.
Holistic, right? Like, to go from 1 to 1 to 0 is, not, granted, we want to move communities towards less reliance on the automobile, but we've got to recognize the lack of transit infrastructure in Scarborough, the lack of bus frequency in Scarborough. To make that transition is not overnight. To me, as we're struggling with this one development in Clonmore, where we're going to see overflow
One
because
size does not fit all.
Yeah.
And we seem to be.
And to me, Alan, on the parking thing, is we could have gone to 75% of units. What was before 1-for-1, 1 parking spot for 1 condo unit, to me, the nuance would have been going to 75%, right? What we've seen now are proposals with, 30 to 40% parking spots, which are gonna now, overflow into neighborhood communities.
It's what they want to have one size fits all Toronto. Well, that's fine if you're downtown, but we're not the same size.
And that's why we need Scarborough councillors to be together, and this is how S.U.N is trying to go. And when we did the Delta thing, it was Agent Court's front and center concern with the Delta, and they put a whole list of things that we got from them. The S.U.N sent it to Mayor Chow and all the councillors and the economic and development team, and shared those things with them and said, take a look at this, and you know what, this is, and the thing that came out the most of it was the amount of money that was being spent. And it wasn't about, you know, we understand all these things, so if you get a chance to look at it, that's what it is. I talked to Rhoda now, she was gonna be here today, but she had another personal engagement to do, and she said there's well over 100 or so people that responded to the committee and the councillors, especially Mantis, because that's their ward too, but across Scarborough. So it is raising attention. Not everyone might agree with it, but that's not, we know the world's not like that. But those who do, it's a voice, right? And know it's democracy. Democracy rules, majority rules, and you have to be a voice. And too many times we're all quiet about it. And you can't be noisy about everything, but you have to pick and choose what you're gonna do, and you have to have your own time, so.
And I'm thinking an interesting point came up is that there are actually more people in the Delta Inn that are supposed to be in a shelter.
Yeah, the Delta
It
uses
must
a
be way
huge
too many.
shelter.
They're not supposed to have that many.
The limit is
people.
60
Why
per
it's not
shelter.
holding
You know-
people to the shelter?
Yeah, the Auditor General report highlighted the city paid more than $6 million than they should have, right? So there's
That's
financial.
money that goes somewhere else, folks. It's, okay.
Let's go back to the
Okay.
audience. Alex?
I have a question about the
Jonathan,
size. That's okay. The size of the ward. You've met a few people the last
Sorry?
couple of months. You've met a few people the last couple of months, so it's okay if you get names wrong.
No, we had a friend on our campaign called Alex.
Oh.
I know your last name is Schmidt, so I was thinking, so, sorry, Jonathan.
That's okay. Yeah, so this is a really large ward. It used to be 2 wards. I live in what used to be Ward 35. We had a councillor there who was very active when she first began, but she was fairly absent from the board. In fact, absent from City Hall towards the end of her time. There's a perception, I'm not sure if it's right or not, but that the last councillor paid more attention to the old Ward 36. But I also know that there's some dynamics. The folks who are on Ward 36 tend to be more organized, and it's a different sort of feeling to the area. So I'm just curious, first of all, what are you going to do to what you've got in mind to make sure that you represent the whole ward? What are some kind of initiatives you might take to engage some of those communities that can't be as organized, whose voices are harder to hear? How would you be proactive that way? And the other is just sort of, you've been at the doors of this whole board. I'm curious to hear what you've learned about the different neighborhoods that we actually have.
Good question. So a couple of things, Jonathan. I grew up in the north half of the ward, the old Ward 35, since 1988. My mom and my grandfather still live in Ward 35, old Ward 35. I live in old Ward 35, born in Danforth in Oak Ridge. A lot of family, relatives, there'll be some staff members who I'll be making public shortly who live in Ward 35. So that to me, as I've committed, as we slowly build out our team, is being very important to me. Other councillors are like, what, are you crazy? How can you hire only from your ward? But I'm making it a very concerted decision to do that because, you know, the reasons I shared earlier. So I think that's the best mechanism, and I think that's a complete, and you know, people were surprised at my comments at Oak Ridge Community Centre during that debate, right? But it's something meaningful to me. So I think that's the best mechanism to build faith with communities, when those who are representing their interests live in their communities. To give you a, so that's my first thing. You know, it's to, you know, I made commitments to have public, you know, what's the word? Options of accessibility, right? And having open forums across. So not going to just be in Birchmount Community Centre. It's going to be at SATAC. It's going to be at Warden Hilltop, John Montgomery. You know, to the reference to the former council who started off well, because I was there in that first term, and she was very accessible. I think I was always accessible in my 8 years, and one of the reasons why many folks who were active parents in all wards, including my old school Corvette who supported me, Claire Lee, Walter Perry, saw that continued accessibility for a year. So I don't have a hopefully re-elected in 2026, but that'll, of course, be based on my and my team's performance, right? So I hope that'll always continue, always be there. It's been what I'd like to think a hallmark of my public service thus far. On your second question, it's true blank.
Initiatives?
Yeah, I said, how proactively will you engage some of those communities that aren't able to engage as well? Those voices aren't heard, that aren't as organized in some of the.
I think creating those spaces and having my staff reach out, I think going, it's good politics to go to door when it's not a campaign period, but it's also good public service, right? And that's how you can engage people and meet them where they are. When I was a school trustee, my superintendent, the good superintendents and I would ask our principals to have their parent council meetings at the building, not at the school. Go to where parents are not coming in. We have funding, get a translator, right? So there are things that I've done as a trustee that I'm going to utilize as well to go where people are, not expect them to get in a car and come to Warden Hilltop or to Birchmount Community Centre to have meetings in different places. So what was your second question?
Well, the final one was just, what have you learned about the different communities?
Oh, yes, what I learned about the different, yes. You know what? It's similar to our conversation here. I really appreciated no one held back in terms of their actual opinion, whether it was on security, safety, or if it was on the root causes of violence and solutions. I really dislike the straitjackets that are put on when people feel they have to be beholden to a certain political ideology, whether it's left or right. And I appreciate people expressing views for tax increases. I appreciate people in this small group express support for holding the line on taxes. I appreciate it.
I'm for raising them, by the way.
Yeah.
As long as you see something for them.
No, but I don't like the culture where we create a space where people can't share their political opinions, whether it's politically convenient or popular or not. I think people should have the right to share what they believe. If they believe in, whatever it is, on policing, on social programming, on transit, everyone, bike lanes, right? Everyone should have that ability to say what they think. And I really appreciate no one held back today. That's the culture I want to create in this ward. And that is a reflection to your question of what I saw at the door. I saw people who were left on some issues. I hate to use these labels, but what we traditionally call left on certain, and they're right on certain other issues, and vice versa, right? And I think that's the actual political makeup of our ward and our city, and that's what I said in that Toronto Star interview. I want to be a fair, honest broker of multiple interests, right? Because we do have multiple interests. And to expect everyone to kowtow to what you think is right, I think is terrible, it's condescending, it's arrogant. To expect other people to kowtow to what you believe is the best use of public resources and money. Everyone has a right to their opinion. It's so fundamental to democracy and to governance, and that's how I want everyone to make sure they have, that it's a safe space to share what they think, right?
Okay, so, Philip?
You want to go first? I'll go brief. I talked to Ron about these groups, like all these groups. This is an important meeting for not just Scarborough and yourself, but for everybody. Like, for example, you mentioned a building and you never heard about it, right? These are all different groups. I'm part of Acorn and also More Neighbors and also Community Networks Benefits. And we've been talking among ourselves as groups. We get to come together as just not as an organization, respecting each other's differences, but just take into account what you need, what you're missing. And that's what's missing. Scarborough's the biggest ward in the whole of Toronto, and there's a lack of voice there. Not on your part, just the interest in Scarborough. Like, the subway system's a joke, I'm telling you right now. The way they're building the subway, 3 stops for Scarborough subway, and 2 are not going to be accessible, I heard. That means if you need accessibility, you've got to go to the next subway and backtrack down on a bus. So that's something to look into. These organizations are all part of something they get together, right? It's important that you hear each other, right? And like, I didn't know a lot of you groups until today, but it's important, and it's great. People are going to watch this video and say, hey, I didn't know you exist. And you're talking, your input, they're making that. You make a difference, right? So like you sing all these groups, getting your stronger voice to Scarborough, and we can set an example for other wards. They can say, hey, look, Scarborough's got all these groups, they got a strong voice, they're getting things done. Let's do what they're doing, right?
Okay, great. We're gonna have to close up. We can still ask questions after. But we want to thank everybody that attended. I know you've had, it's okay, very busy agendas. And again, thanks to Linda for helping us facilitate that. We're gonna have our next meeting next week, and we're gonna have more discussions about that too. Just one thing is that you've got 50,000 voters out there, and to reach them all is probably electronic. Mailing and stuff is slow in a whole bit, and that's probably just something you might be able to get connection. With S.U.N, we started out 8 months ago, only with a few people. We've had over 30 community groups now in Scarborough, all of Scarborough involved, and over 250 people, residents that just want to listen and take the information. Whatever they do with it, it's up, but they just love getting it, to be able to see that this is it, and if they want something, they don't want it, they just trash it, right? But the key thing is getting information out there because they weren't getting it before, and that's a key thing. So tips to that, very good, thank you very much, and everyone's so respectful, and it was a positive, productive meeting. Thanks again to
I just
Sultana.
want to request one thing, like all of you, we can share our contact information with each other and make it kind of a list, organizational list, so that any kind of help I need, like if I send an email, I'm requesting please help me.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You got it.
Thanks for inviting me.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
One last thing.
Okay.
And a little out of left field, it's kind of it comes out of kind of that product round. The city of Toronto uses way too much road salt. I saw them applying it at a bus stop with a 3-foot-long snow shovel out of the back of a pickup truck. There's a group that's called Smart About Salt. It teaches the contractors that are hired by a lot of municipalities now in Toronto, throughout Canada and really in the US where it started. And they teach contractors so they get certified as to the most effective and to minimize its use. It is a ticking time bomb. Like apart from the damage the corrosion does, it's also killing Lake Ontario. It's turning it into a sea. There are so many tons every year of salt going into the lakes we have that it is going to kill the ecosystems. Now, we drink water out of that, we get fish from there, and a lot of other stuff. If it dies, we tend to die with it. So we need to get a lot smarter about how the city, just as an example, last winter and a few other times, I've seen a salter going down Brimley, followed by a plow. Now,
Have you all seen that?
Yeah.
how much sense does that make? Okay, so let's spread the salt on the road. Oh, and then we'll just plow it out of the way.
And just to add to that,
You know,
a
so
place like
you need
Muskoka,
to look at, and there is that group, which looks at one of the places where it started. They reduced their use of salt in Barrie because of Lake Simcoe by almost 50% or more. Lake Simcoe has so much salt in it, it is basically a sea. So a lot of freshwater life is dying in it. We don't want that to happen to Lake Ontario. It's happening in Lake Ontario.
in Muskoka, they have it, and they finally said, stop it, because all the rich
So
properties
the
are,
damage
blue
is
and
being
green algae.
recognized, but it's just slow. Part of the reason people use it is because it's so cheap. Well, not if you start to count the environmental damage that's going along with it. If you start doing that, it becomes a...
I will bring this up with Councillor Diane Sachs, who's, and Councillor McKelvey. They're both very passionate about the impacts city decisions on the environment. So
one of the first places...
because we got a couple of emails in the week saying, hey, our street didn't get salted. I see it was smart.
Sorry, I used up all the salt on this side.
Find out what the price of salt is, and then ask how much we pay for salt. There's savings there.
Great.
There is. Okay, that's a wrap. Thanks for everybody.
Thank you, Simon, thank you, Rod, and Alan for putting this together.
It's not possible without everyone here.
I'll send you that thing.
And done.